So Ben Shapiro is out here spreading a bunch of false narratives and lies about black crime. They used to have the lie that doesn't make any mathematical or logical sense that black people, 13% of the American population, but 50% of the violent crimes. And now they've updated it. And now they're saying something more absurd than that. Now they're saying that black people are 12 times more likely to commit a violent crime against a white person than the other way around. We will debunk all of these narratives this evening. You guys stay locked in.
The price of freedom is death. We're coming to get our check.
Black first, my brothers and my sisters, welcome to the Afro Elite YouTube channel. I'm your host, Afro Elite. I appreciate you all for being with us this evening, this Memorial Day evening. I appreciate you all. Hopefully, you all have been spending quality time with your family. You guys have been out barbecuing or going somewhere, doing something nice. Or if you've been working, hopefully you've been getting that time and a half. I hope so. That's what I hope. And I appreciate every single last one of you all for being here. The glasses, I'm gonna have to get the glasses somewhere. They're around here somewhere. Before we get started, what I would appreciate you guys do is like and all of that stuff, because we're gonna get straight into it. So I'm gonna play the copyright disclaimer, so letting YouTube and everybody know that everything we play thus forth is protected under the guise of fair use. So as you guys are hopefully hitting that like button, subscribe button, share button, all of that, we'll be right back with you all in just a second. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. All right, we back. See, I got the glasses, or one of them. I got a couple different pairs, but I got one of them. I have to look for the other one. I probably put it in my room or something like that. But yes, my sophisticated glasses. I'm here because we're gonna have to talk about data. We're gonna have to talk about crime. The reason why I wanted to make this video or this live stream is because in my previous live stream I brought up a video from Steven Crowder, the coward, Steven the Crowder. Okay, who has a notorious history of abusing women, according to his former wife. I'm going to play this clip real quick so we can do a little refresher and reminder, and then just to let you all know about my inspiration of this live stream. And then I have another reason, so we're going to play that, then we're going to continue going into it. All right, just the tail end of it.
Black Americans. Okay, black Americans, they kill white Americans at 12 times the rate that white Americans kill black Americans. References available, and I'm going by rote here. If you know this, actually, an armed white man is far more likely to be shot by the cops than an armed black man.
Yep.
The stat they use is unarmed black men. Here's why. Black men also commit assaults on police officers far more than white people. Did you know that?
It's not true. It's not true. Not true whatsoever. Okay? Not true whatsoever. So when I was looking into that, and I was sitting up there thinking, like, at first, when he cited his source, which was Ben Shapiro, I'm all like, nah, we're not. That's not even. Of course, because we know Ben Shapiro has. I mean, you can't really get more anti-black than Ben Shapiro. You know, he's pretty much as openly biased against black people as can be. So of course, you're gonna just really dismiss what he has to say as Ben. Then I thought, you know what? Maybe I should look into that. And then Ben had a video. But before we play that, I want to play this other video that we saw from somebody who is also another very, very unapologetically anti-black, suspected, really not so suspected anymore, white supremacist. So we're going to play this small clip from Matt Walsh.
Except we aren't supposed to say it out loud. Every single person listening right now is thinking the same thing, but you're not supposed to say it. But I will say it. The population of Jackson is 80% black. By the way, where I used to live, it was 2% black. Now, you might know nothing about Jackson at all, but just based on the crime stats, you already made assumptions about the racial demographics, and your assumptions were right. Okay, you heard that it's a place where violent crime is overwhelming. You make an assumption that it must be a heavily black community. And you're right. Indeed, if you look at any town in America and see that it has a predominantly black population, you can assume that the crime rate is probably pretty high. And you will almost always be correct. And we all know that. We all know it. But we're not supposed to say it. This is
because that's not true. Just because the area is full of black people doesn't mean the crime is high. And it doesn't mean the crime is higher than that same population size would be if the area was another race or another ethnicity of people. See, what they're doing is, and what Matt Walsh and a lot of the white supremacists of his ilk, what they do is they'll say the situation and all of the factors that lead into crime, we're going to completely ignore every single other factor, every single other variable, everything else, and we're going to only say race. The only thing we're talking about is if they're black, the economics don't matter, the over policing don't matter, none of the policies and the just the crime in general and the environment that breeds the crime in general, that doesn't matter. The school system doesn't matter. What matters is they're black, and they're only committing the crimes because they're black, and they're black, and if that's the reason. We don't need to discuss anything else besides the fact that they're black. And of course, black people do crimes. So he's ignoring the fact, okay, well, if you can assume if it's a large population, the crime is probably higher. No, you cannot make that assumption. That's a racist assumption to make. We can make the assumption that if a area has been systemically disenfranchised and has been systemically neglected and on top of that over-policed, then it is going to be a higher amount of reported crimes. This doesn't just go for black people. This goes for the rural areas of white people. This goes for the trailer park areas and the rural areas in and North Dakota, South Dakota, all of these places where black people are rarely at. And all of the time, the poorest of the poorest areas is always the highest crime. It's not a race thing when it comes to crime, but he's not going to say that because that defeats the narrative that anything else can be pointed to or blamed except black people just being black. That's what he's trying to say.
Is one of the many things that every single person watching, including the people that are going to clip this and put it on Twitter and say, oh, Matt Walsh is racist. All of them know that it's true also, but you're not supposed to say it. So it's one of the many truths in America that we've all just agreed to not say out loud, which is very unfortunate because it prevents us from asking the next question. That once we've admitted what we know is true, predominantly black community, probably going to have high crime. The next question is, why is that the case? Why is crime so prevalent in black communities? Now, there isn't one single answer to that question, but there is one major, overwhelmingly significant answer that we must begin with. The fatherless rate in the black population in Jackson, just as in cities all across the country, is over 80%. Now, you've heard stats like that before, especially on this show, but you hear it so often that it might not really sink in. Because you hear 80% fatherless, oh yeah, we've heard that, but really think about that. I mean, really think about it. Over 80%. I mean, we are rapidly approaching a point where married parents and intact families simply just don't exist in Jackson or cities like it at all. In fact, the fatherless problem is so pervasive in Jackson and other cities in that state that the out-of-wedlock birth rate in all of Mississippi is now over 50%. In the entire state, a child of Mississippi is more likely to be born to an unmarried mother than to a married one. Now, it is not possible to have a functioning society with statistics like that. There has never been in the history of the world a functioning society with statistics like that, ever. It's impossible. It is a guaranteed recipe for crime, violence, dysfunction, and chaos. Every time. So there is no solution to the problems facing black people that doesn't begin with addressing this issue. It is not possible to have a productive and worthwhile conversation about the plight of the black community in this country if that conversation does not revolve around the fact that the black community, generally speaking, has given up on the nuclear family.
Okay. All right. That's really enough there. That's really, really enough right there. We don't really need to go too much more into that. Now, here's the thing. Let's have a conversation, because there's always going to be some people. It's always going to be some people. You know, we never miss them. There's going to be some people who are going to be all like, well, that is true. Now, we do be having kids out of wedlock. Now, we got to stop doing that. All right. Let's address the conversation from different angles, and let's be as fair and honest, because you can't solve the situation, the problem, without honesty. So let's be as honest as possible. Should you, sorry, I got something in my eyes, sorry. Excuse me. Should you be having children out of wedlock? No, that's not productive. There is a right and the wrong way to do things, okay? If you are going to start a family and you are going to have children, the children should not be born out of wedlock. I think we can all agree on that, all right? Nobody is sitting up here saying that part is not accurate. That is something that is true. What is also true is that, statistically speaking, more children are being born out of wedlock. The rate of children being born out of wedlock across all races are increasing. The amount of people who are getting married and waiting to have children, waiting to get married to have children, is decreasing. All right. Also, the amount of people who are getting divorced is also increasing. This is across the whole board. So if we want to have this conversation across the board, we can have the conversation across the board. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to sit up here and pinpoint this as black people and black people's issues. Okay. Black people's issues and not be honest about it. Now, another thing, very important, another thing though, is that when you say something, when you say black people have a fatherless household or a fatherless upbringing, the implication that you give with that is you give the implication that the father is out the house and the father has pretty much little to no interaction with the children whatsoever, at least anything beyond the financial contribution that the state makes him give through child support. Okay. But besides that, hold on, I'm sorry, y'all. But besides that the father is not influential in the child's life. That's not necessarily the case. Okay. Two people, let's be honest. Now we can say, well, two people should be married and have kids. Now, as true as that is, what is also true is that people do get divorced. People do split up. People have been getting divorced for a very long time. People do split up. When people split up, especially if the children are young, the child is not going to live in both households. The child is going to live in one household, is going to be the primary household. Okay. That is the case. Okay. In most of these cases in America, this is across the board. This is not a racial thing. This is across the board. In most of these cases, when the child is young, the child tends to stay with the mother in most cases. All right. But does this mean that the child is fatherless because the child does not live in the home? Is the father not an active part of the child's life? This is what Matt Walsh is implying. I said Walsh, I think Walsh, right? Matt Walsh is implying that the child, because the dad and the mom are not married, that means that the child's father is not an active child in the child's life. That's not true. You can't say because you're not married to the mother or even living in the same house, because there's some people who just don't get married, but they boyfriend and girlfriend and they raising kids or whatever the case is. But what you can't say is that if a couple is not married, then the child is fatherless, implying that the child has no father influence, his or her father is not influential in their life whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the statistics actually go to disprove that point. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you that right now. This is what the statistics have to say about it. Let me do it like this. Okay, hold on. This is one of the things I do not like about Yahoo News. Hold on. Okay. So it says, see, Yahoo got a lot of ads, but just bear with me, y'all. Just bear with me. All right. We're going to read a little bit into this, not too much because this isn't really the point, but this goes to defeat the narrative of fatherless. Black fathers are not active in the lives of their children. That's not true. It says, we've long known the myth about Black fathers and their general lack of involvement in fitness as fathers as simply mush, yet another way for a country fearful of Black masculinity and emasculate and dehumanize brothers. Okay, so they're starting off. Let's get to the actual statistic of it, because I don't want to be too long with all the ads and stuff. We get down here, somewhere down here. Okay. Now we're right here. Ignore all of the bouncing and jumping ads because I have to. It says a CDC study found that Black fathers who live with their children are more likely than white or Hispanic fathers to bathe, change, or dress their children every day, more likely to eat meals with their children every day, more likely to help their children with their homework every day. The ironic study is a decade old now. So this isn't just one quick study they did about 100 fathers. This is a long, intense study they did with several different fathers of different racial and economic backgrounds. Okay. And this is the conclusion that they had. The ironic study is a decade old now and continues to be cited. It is worth remembering as fathers across the country are celebrated. Okay. So not to get too far into that, but shout out to the Black fathers out there for doing what you guys got to do. I appreciate y'all. All right. This also doesn't just go when it comes to fathers that actually live with the kids. When you actually go to the CDC site, we're not going to do that this evening. I already did a live stream about it. We can do that maybe a little bit time later. We can retouch this issue a little bit later. But the point still remains that when all things are equal, Black fathers actually do more and are more active and are more fatherly than non-Black fathers. So the whole idea of the Black community having a father crisis, which is what Matt Walsh and all of these things, all of these people, things really are saying, is because they're trying to dismiss all of the systemic racist and white supremacist oppression that creates the environment that breeds crime. That's what they're trying to do. So I saw that, and then doing more study, it leads me into the person that has spread this new narrative that Black crime is or Black versus white crime, or Black on white crime, however they're wording it, is more intense and more severe than white on Black crime. Okay. So we're going to be discussing that. All right. So here's the clip from Ben, and I already played I was about to say GoFundMe. I already played the copyright thing.
Reality. Here is the statistical reality. White Americans are significantly more likely to be victimized by Black Americans than Black Americans are to be victimized by white Americans when it comes to violent crime. The stats are not close. Now, let's start with a simple fact. Nearly all crime is intra-racial. White on white, Black on Black, Hispanic on Hispanic. The only group for which that is not true is Asian Americans. But when it comes to Black versus...
hold on. Let me play this. Ben is going to cherry pick a bunch of clips of Black people doing violent things. So just a warning that his video, not my video, his video is going to contain some graphic images. Just a warning. okay? But he's going to cherry pick a bunch of clips of black people hitting a white person, and it's just going to make it seem like this is this epidemic of black violence, and we're just going around terrorizing everybody. So this is, I'm just letting you know that now, warning you that now, all right? All right. Should be playing soon.
White crimes, or white versus black crimes, black Americans are far more likely to be perps than victims. Victimization survey in 2019, there were 562,550 interracial crimes concerning blacks and whites. 89,980 of those crimes featured a white perp and a black victim. 472,570 of those crimes featured a black perp and a white victim. In other words, 84% of violent interactions involving black and white people involved black people victimizing white people. That's not a statistical aberration. A common argument that you hear all the time is that, well, maybe the problem is that when white people attack black people, or when black people attack white people, that maybe not all of it is getting reported. Maybe it's a reporting problem. Well, this is why murder is a useful statistic, because murder is always reported. There's an actual dead body. You can't hide behind dumb arguments about white crime being underreported or black crime being overreported when it comes to dead people. Every year, the number...
Okay. We're going to break this down. We're going to break that down. Okay. So the statistic that he's bringing up, and then we're going to actually get into the fact that he's bringing up false statistics. Okay. But before I say this, I'm going to say most of the times that he's bringing this up and the times that they're bringing this up is these are skewed information and skewed data talking points. These people generally, now I want you to keep this in mind. This person is out here saying that Carmelo Anthony completely unjustly murdered Austin Metcalf, but Daniel Penny did not murder Jordan Neely. The way he's saying the statistics, of course, there's going to be a bias because every time a white person victimizes a black person, they say it's justified and it's not murder. It doesn't matter what it is, what the case is. If they're on their side, they're going to say, well, that's the right side. Okay, white supremacist side. They're going to say, okay, well, that's not murder. Yet when a black person defends themselves, that's murder. So you can already tell, as far as Ben Shapiro is concerned, that there is bias. Now, when you look at the data that he's bringing up, we're going to go into the data that he's bringing up. And I want you guys to think about this as we go forward. This is the site he's bringing up, and he's bringing this up from 2019 because that's the only year that they ever bring this stuff up. It's 2019. Making it a little bit bigger. So he's looking at this. This is the murder table of 2019, where it says race of the victim, white, black, other race, and then race unknown. So as you can see, when it comes to total murders, the white people is almost 3,300, and then black people almost 3,000. As you can see, the victim, this is the race of the offender right here. We're gonna zoom. We're gonna can't zoom this in. Why can't I zoom this in? Okay. Boy, my computer is acting a little something else. It's kind of tripping a little bit, but it's okay. It's okay. We're going to get through it. We're going to get through it. It's saying that, of course, when you look at it this way, and you look at the fact that there is a higher number of offenders for white victims, this is the race of the victim, and most of the offenders here are black, and then most of the black people here with the offenders are also black, who harm black people. And then white people harm black people less in 2019 than black people harmed white people. So this is what they're saying here. Now, of course, this is what Ben Shapiro is citing. Now, let me ask you this question. How does this make sense when In the same year, because let's look at the same year now. We're just going to look at the same year from the same FBI. This isn't a different source that's a little bit more less biased or more in favor of black people. This is also the same source, and this is the same year. So nobody can say, "Oh, you picking a different year, a year where there was less crimes." When it comes to the FBI release in hate crime statistics, okay, you're going to scroll down and you see that most of the hate crimes, almost 60%, are race, ethnicity, and ancestry. And this is according to the FBI. And then when we scroll down a little bit further and everything, we scroll down a little bit further, what we're going to see is that, I want you guys to keep this in mind. In the UCR program, we're going to get into what the UCR program is shortly. The term known offender does not apply that the suspect's known identity is known. Rather, the term indicates that some aspect of the suspect is identified, okay? Thus distinguishing the suspect from a unknown offender, all right? So that means that all of the cases weren't necessarily caught, but this is the information that they get, all right? So as you can see in the highlighted part right here, it says, of the 6,000, now mind you, this is 2019, the same year that they keep getting all their skewed data points. It says, of the 6,406 known offenders, 52.5 were white. Now, I want you guys to keep this in mind. They're saying known offenders. That means that there was a witness who saw them. That means that these people were caught. That means that these people were seen on camera or arrested or something like that. So I want you guys to keep this in mind. This is also a possibility. This is them saying that they don't know who all of the offenders were racially. So the number of white people are also higher. This number is also higher because a lot of them would get away with that. So this also includes vandalism and things like that. If they don't have video evidence to prove that it was a white person who vandalized it, even if they wrote the N-word and all caps and all that, they're not going to say it was a white hate crime because they don't have the actual quote unquote evidence to verify that it was a white hate crime. So I want you to see what they're saying right here is that they don't necessarily have all of the data, but this is the data that they do have. So the numbers, which this is what they're admitting to, the numbers are downplayed. It says of the 6,406 known offenders, 52.5 were white and 23.9 were black or African American. Other races accounted for the remaining known offenders. 1.1 were American Indian or Alaskan Native. 0.9 were Asian. 0.3 were Hawaiian Native or other Pacific Islander. And 6.6 of the group of multiple races. Okay, so says that's pretty interesting. Then it goes down and it says most of the people were not Hispanic. So these are not Afro-Latinos. These are not Afro-Latinos, but most of the people who were doing that were white. Most of the people who were committing hate crimes were white. And most of the people who had the hate crimes committed on them were black. So that's very, why is it now? Okay, now it froze out. Come on, now, damn. So that's very interesting. So let me ask you this question, because we have to ask questions in order to get to the truth, right? How does it make sense that black people are 12 times more likely to commit a violent crime against a white person, yet all of the hate crime data, which the FBI also admits is underreported, the hate crime data indicates that the overwhelming attacks when it comes to hate crimes are done by white people onto black people? How does that make sense? Even though this is the same FBI, so it's not like they're getting different data from different places and stuff like that. It's not like this is a different organization that calculates things differently. It's not like this is a different year. So you got to scratch your head and you got to wonder, how is that happening? You got to ponder on that. What's going on? So when you look at how the FBI actually collects its data, then it starts to make a little bit more sense. It starts to make a little bit more sense. Let me pull this clip up real quick. Okay, hold on. Not a clip. Let me hold on. Pull this up. But as I'm doing that, we're going to, as I'm pulling this up, because the ads just blocked it. So I'm going to have to pull this up again. But as we're doing that, we're going to continue playing this video. Not that one.
The number of whites killed by blacks exceeds by a factor of about 2 the number of blacks killed by whites. Let's take 2019. According to FBI statistics, there were 3,299 white Americans murdered that year. 2,594 of them, 79%, were killed by white perpetrators. 566, 17%, were killed by black perpetrators. Now, 2,906 black Americans were murdered that same year. 2,574 of them, 89%, were killed by black perpetrators. 246, 8% were killed by white perpetrators. Compare those two numbers. 566 white Americans were killed by black Americans. Only 246 black Americans were killed by white Americans. Now, let's adjust for population size, because it turns out there are a lot more white people in America than black people. So, generally, you'd expect to see, if all the other factors were equal, a lot more white on black crime than the opposite. There are about 235 million white Americans. There are about 47 million black Americans. This means that 1 out of every million white Americans killed a black person. By contrast, 12 out of every million black Americans killed a white person. The disparity between the stats is perfectly obvious. The reason that crime is currently wildly underpoliced in major Democratic areas is because the left will not acknowledge reality. Way better to pretend that the criminal justice system is discriminatory than to acknowledge the obvious truth: disproportionate crime among black populations. But ignoring that problem doesn't make it go away. It makes the problem worse, and the people who generally suffer are not white Americans, they are black Americans. According to Alan Beck of the Bureau of Justice Statistics, quote, relative to their share of the US population, 60%, white people were underrepresented among offenders in non-fatal violent crimes overall, 52%. They accounted for 45% of offenders involved in aggravated assault and 31% of offenders involved in robbery. Black people were overrepresented among offenders in non-fatal violent crimes overall, 29%. Relative to their share of the US population, 13%. Half of all offenders involved in robbery, 51%. A third involved in aggravated assault, 34%. More than a fifth involved in simple assault, 23%. And rape or sexual assault, 22%, were black. According to Pew Research Center, black men are the most likely to go to prison. There were 2,272 inmates per 100,000 black men in 2018, compared with 392 inmates per 100,000 white men. In 2018, black Americans represented 33% of the sentenced prison population, nearly triple their 12 to 13% share of the US adult population. Whites accounted for 30% of prisoners, about half their share of the adult population. According to another study printed in the journal Science Advances, quote, lifetime risk of imprisonment for black males rose from more than 1 in 5, about 20% in 1986, to nearly 1 in 2, about 49.6% in 2004, before falling to roughly 1 in 6, 16.2% in 2016. Even though the current number is way lower than the prior numbers, it's still way higher than ever recorded among white men. So, why is this happening? Why disproportionate crime in the black community? The single most obvious factor correlating with violent crime is lack of fathers in the home. According to the Institute for...
Okay, so I'll let that play for a minute. Lack of fathers in the home. Of course, it's no other reason besides the lack of fathers in the home, and they're all going to say that. Lack of fathers in the home. This is a narrative that they say to say that our culture, this is them blaming our culture, and then this is them trying to relieve themselves, white supremacists trying to relieve themselves of any guilt, of any responsibility whatsoever, and say it's not white people's fault. You can't do that whatsoever. You can't blame white supremacy. You can't blame racism. You can't blame any of that. So going back to the crime statistics that Ben Shapiro is skewing and inciting and everything, right? When you look at it, let's take a good look again. Take this off the screen, put this back on the screen. And when you look at the situation again, it comes out like, right, where is it? Oh, right here on this page. Okay. This is how they get their crime data from. All right. Now, remember we said URC. It says the Uniform Crime Reporting, URC, which was their previous way of reporting. It says it programs generate reliable statistics for the use in law enforcement. It also provides information for students of criminal justice, researchers, the media, and the public. The program has been providing statistics since 1930 It says the URC program includes data for more than 18,000 cities, universities, and colleges, county, state, tribal, and federal enforcement agencies. Agencies participate voluntarily and submit their crime data either through state URC program or directly to the FBI URC program. So what happens is that the city, the state, the university, all of these things, what this means is that they voluntarily, because they can do it or they cannot do it, they voluntarily give their crime data to the FBI, and all the FBI does is take all of the crime data that has been volunteered to them, and then they put it in a table and they say, this is the table. UCR. Was I saying URC? I'm UCR. I was saying the wrong thing. It's UCR. I messed up. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This is what they do. Now, when you actually look at the disparities when it comes to policing, because the problem is, and before we get into it, the problem is not the fact that black people, quote unquote, commit 50% of the violent crime. I want you guys to think about the logistics of that and how unrealistic that could possibly be anyway. How unrealistic it would be that black people, who are only 13% of the population, let them tell it, commit 50% of all violent crime, including murder. And most of the crime is committed among other black people. You would think that at crime rates that high, that are not going down according to them, at crime rates that severe, that black people will eventually wipe each other off the face of America. If that was a crime rate, if that was how it was, we would wipe ourselves off the face of the crime, of the face of the country. But it's not really like that. What happens is that most of these crime statistics that the FBI gets from other biased sources go underreported when it comes to white criminality. And they are over-policed and over-reported when it comes to black people. We're going to get into that. We're going to show you some data on that. And then we're going to break it down a little bit more and talk about it. Yes, we will wipe ourselves off the planet. I can't believe I was saying the wrong thing. Wrong acronym. Okay. Is UCR. Okay. So going into this, I'm going to look at this just a little bit. Okay. If you guys don't mind, I think we should look at this.
Well, tens of thousands of people are stopped and frisked every year in the district by police without a warrant. That's according to a new report released today by the American Civil Liberties Union in D.C.
Now, the report accuses D.C. police of discriminatory.
Okay.
Practices. It found black people in the district are overwhelmingly more.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it for a second. Let it buffer. Might take it back a little bit.
To be searched. Investigative reporter Tracy Wilkins breaks down what this report reveals. Being stopped.
Okay, yeah, we're not gonna do that. I hate when that happens. I cannot stand when that happens. I don't know why my laptop
and
is
briefly
not
detained without a warrant, but because of how you look.
Yeah, we're not doing that. We're not doing. Hold on for 1 second, y'all. Don't you hate it? You gotta hate it, man. You gotta hate it when you're playing a video and it keeps loading up. It just messes up the flow. It really does. It messes the whole flow up, you know. And I was having that issue before. That's why we came on live. But sometimes, you know, we've been doing this for a minute. Sometimes you gotta improvise. It is what it is. See, that's the kind of con when it comes to live streaming, but it's okay. but it's all right. So let's continue. We're going to continue and discuss it. All right. This is why it takes so long, because I literally damn near have to download every video I play, which takes a while. It takes a long time to do that. But it is what it is. We're here. We can just read it. It says tens of thousands of people are stopped and searched by DC police each year without a warrant, according to a new report released Monday by the American Civil Liberties Union of DC. Okay, I want you to keep this in mind. This report didn't come out that long ago. All right, this came out in 2000. It was updated in 2014. It came out 2014. It was updated in 2014. That's last year, September. That's last year. So this isn't no old data. All right, just keep this in mind. It says the report, quote, bias at the core. Enduring racial disparities in DC Metropolitan Police Department stop and frisk policy practices. Now, they say stop and frisk doesn't exist anymore. That's what they say. That's what they claim. But yet, that's what you see. You see stop and frisk. You still see stop and frisk. Okay. It says, yeah, the report is the stop and frisk of policies. Accuses the department of discriminatory practices, saying black people in the district are overwhelmingly more likely to be searched. It says, as part of a DC law passed in 2016, the Metropolitan Police Department is required to collect data around how often it conducts stop and frisk searches. This is the third time the ACLU DC has analyzed that data. It's the third time. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. This was in 2000. They did this study or released it in 2024. They said the law has passed in 2016. So between the years of 2016 to 2024, which is 8 years, in 8 years, this is the third time they analyzed the data. This is only the third time they analyze the data. Okay. But it says this is the third time the ACLU-DC has analyzed that data, which it shows DC police is moving in the wrong direction and sorry, hold on. Let me set up a little bit. And the searches do more harm than good for both police and community. Okay. Continues to say, there is a power dynamic at play. Even if you know you weren't doing anything at all, the fact that a police officer is approaching you, you can be very nerve-wracking. It can be very nerve-wracking, said ACLU DC Policy Advocacy Director Scarlett Albott. According to the report, in 2022, 68,244 people were stopped, resulting in less than 1% of guns being seized. So these police are just stopping people just cause they're just stopping. That's it. Okay, they're just stopping people, and 1% of all of these people have been stopped. Okay, over half of wow, close to 70,000 people have been stopped in DC. And they only got 1% of them with guns. It says last year there was an increase, so there was even more people. Okay, with 68,561 people stopped and searched, with 1.2. Oh, it did increase a little bit. 1.2 ending with gun recovery. So they're stopping and searching people for guns, but really they're not catching anybody whatsoever. So it's saying all of these people stopped. It's pretty much didn't do anything. Gun seized. Well, now it's saying 0.9, and now this is saying 1.2. And you're damn near at 100,000 people. Okay. Then it says, hold on, where is it? Now going down here, when you look at this, this is in 2013. We're gonna read up here. It says the report found that most of the stops occurred in DC's predominantly black wards of 7 and 8, although the practice happened throughout the city. According to the data, black people were stopped more than anyone. Quote, we're at a place where I think we could call it a pattern. It's pretty egregious, Albert said. So when you actually look at the data, now Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Steven Crowder, none of these people are going to bring this stuff up because this defeats their narrative. Now, Ben Shapiro, if he's talking about, well, black people commit all this crime because of the fatherlessness, all of this crime, all of this crime. Okay, well, why are the police searching? As you can see here, the police are searching for stuff. When you look at the data here, this is in 2023. This was only a couple years ago. The population of the stop and frisk, the population of black people, in DC, is saying that's 44. White is 39.6. So it's not that far off. It's almost less than, it is almost, though, as much white people as there are black people. It's not that far off, okay? Is not even a 5% difference in population. Okay, keep that in mind. Hispanic, that's a very small population. Okay, in comparison, it's only 11.5%. Even if you round that up to 12, it's not that big. All right, but then when you look at the stops, though, you see that 44% of the population makes up over 70% of the stops. Now, damn near 40% of the population, which would be white, makes up 11.9% of the stops. And then when you look at the Hispanics make up 7.3, but then when you can count their population size, they overrepresent when it comes to stop and frisk as well too. So white people, even though they're second, close to being 50-50 when it comes to the black population, make up less than 12% of the stops. Now, this only happens, we're going to read a little bit. This only happens if it is deliberate. It has to be deliberate. Now, mind you, this law was passed in 2016. You should see the problem starting to fix itself if the law was passed in 2016, but yet nothing's going on. All right. Now, they just pretty much saying what we saying or whatever. Okay. And that there is a pattern. It's a pattern when it comes to that. So, this is, let me say, we got to break this down, right? Got to break this down. This is because the white population is under policed and the black population is over policed. It's not like you're seeing gang signs and you're looking for certain things. In most of these cases, almost all of the cases, the police are shooting and missing. When I say shooting and missing, they're searching and not finding anything. They're just searching to be searching. This is indicative of the fact that the police are hyper focused, damn near exclusively to this degree, on black people. They're not proportionate in who they're searching. They're not proportionate in who they're policing. They're fixated to the degree of obsession when it comes to black people. They are obsessed with black people. All right. And when you're obsessed with black people, when that's the only community that you're looking at, when those are the only people that you're searching for, you're going to find more often crime in that community because you're dismissing all of the other communities. Follow me. When you dismiss all of the other communities and you hyper focus on one community, it's going to make that community's crime stand out more because that's the only crime you guys are finding, because that's the only thing y'all looking for. Are you following? So, of course, the crime is going to seem more intense and more severe in the black community because you guys are only in the black community. If you guys were equally proportionate in the white community, you would find more crime in the white community, but you guys are leaving them alone and you guys are hyper focusing and looking for crime. It's not like you guys are people are calling you guys and saying, hey, there was a robbery here. Hey, there was a crime here. You guys are going around trying to find incidents on black people, going above and beyond to find things on black people. And this skews the numbers because the people who reported are biased. And then you have the FBI who just collects the data. And then you have white supremacists, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Steven Crowder, all of them going around saying and spewing narratives from a biased police force. Let me show you something. Let me show you something to show you some of the bias and the harassment of police.
Filing a $10 million lawsuit against the...
Okay, this brother is out here filing a $10 million lawsuit, all right? And we're going to talk about this a little bit later.
Lariat filing a $10 million lawsuit against the Michigan State Police, accusing 2 officers of violating his rights and the conspiracy to plant drugs on him during a traffic stop in Benton Harbor back on April 10th.
I don't think I have any. Yeah, I had a stash in here somewhere. I don't even know where it's at.
Lariat says that footage you just saw shows the troopers' conspiracy to plant the drugs the night of his traffic stop.
Why would they do that? Is it a quota? I have no idea what their motivation is.
The night of the stop, he says a trooper accused him of smelling like something fruity, gave him lengthy sobriety tests, sent him to a clinic where his test came back clean, and then sent him to jail anyway. Lariat says that while in jail, the police took it even further, claiming that he was hiding a bag of drugs inside of himself.
That looks like a bag of drugs. Confess now, or you're going to face a trafficking charge as well.
Lariat says he had to publicly use the bathroom to prove it, and it was humiliating. He didn't have drugs.
Now, I want you guys to see this. They gave him they pulled him over, okay, and then they was all like, well, we smell something, which is their excuse to search you, because technically speaking, and this is something that needs to be discussed, technically speaking, they can't search your car unless they have consent or if they have probable cause, which is like, I smell drugs, I smell this, I smell that. And they're going to ask you to get out. They said that he was drunk. He passed the sobriety test. They still arrested him anyway. And this has happened to me, actually. It didn't get to the point where I was actually arrested, but I was harassed with the same reason of, you look like, or the sobriety test seemed like, I don't know, you were swerved. They always say something like that. Okay. They arrested him anyway. They said, you look like, for whatever reason, you might be hiding drugs in yourself, which means like you swallowed a little baggie of drugs or whatever. So they made him take a bowel movement in front of everybody so they can search the toilet and see if he had drugs in his system. That's what they said. This is modern day buck breaking. That is one of the most humiliating things that you can do to another person. It honestly is. Imagine you sitting up there. Most of the times when we go to the bathroom and do that, we don't even want people to know we're doing that. That's just is just not a thing that we just announce and want people to know we're doing, or whatever the case. Everybody does it, but no, it's not something that needs to be announced. We want our privacy and all of that stuff. Imagine, first off, you're getting pulled over for really no reason. They're trying to look for drugs. They're trying to find something. You don't see stories like this of white people, though, of black cops doing this to white people. Just keep this in mind. You get arrested anyway for whatever reason, and now you're made to, in front of a group of people, have a bowel movement so they can search and find if there was any drugs that you swallowed after being pulled over. That is dehumanizing. That is completely dehumanizing.
Face a trafficking charge as well.
Lariat says he had to publicly use the bathroom to prove it, and it was humiliating. He didn't have drugs.
I've never even been arrested. I'm a corporate executive. I worked for Whirlpool for 3 years.
After Lariat's release from custody, the DUI charges were dropped. Months later, he discovered the footage of the alleged conspiracy to plant drugs and an alleged social media page for one of the troopers.
He's transphobic. He's homophobic.
Now, hold on. I want to keep this in mind. He not only found a video, that video right there, and we're going to play this back. the video, he found one of the social media pages. Now, the news isn't going to say what was on the social media pages, but one of the officers had a social media page where the officer was out there. He was making little George Floyd jokes and stuff like that, little white supremacist jokes and all of that stuff, talking, you know, all of these anti-black jokes and stuff, like how you see the white supremacists do. Okay, this is on his, this is clearly public. This is on his public social media page. All right. Now, the news doesn't want to play that, but that's a very important detail.
An alleged social media page for one of the troopers.
He's transphobic, he's homophobic, he's racist, he's misogynistic. I don't know why this man was on the force.
Both.
Okay. Let me now, brother, I'm on your side. I'm on your side, and I hope you do get justice. I really do. I really hope you get justice. Here's the problem, though. Now, we can probably tell he's a part of a certain community. Okay, all right. It is what it is. That's his business. You say he's transphobic, he's homophobic, he's racist, and misogynistic. Okay. I'm not, maybe you did, and even giving you the benefit of the doubt and saying that you did find all of that stuff on his social media page, your issue was not being trans. You were not pulled over. You were not harassed when it came to, you were, first off, not only were you harassed, you were falsely charged with a DUI. You were harassed. You were falsely charged with a DUI. They made you take a bowel movement in front of a group of people. It ain't have nothing to do with you being trans. It didn't have anything to do with your sexuality. When they pulled you over and say, hey, we're going to have some fun tonight, we're going to mess with that guy over there, they didn't know what your sexuality was. They don't know what you like to do in the bedroom or not. Even if they could more than likely tell when they interact with you, them pulling you over was not because of that. They saw a black man and they pulled you over for that reason. And they do stuff like this to not just you, to other black people around the country because of their blackness. Not because of transphobia or homophobia or misogynistic. You're saying this officer was misogynistic. Whatever team you play on, you are a male. And the officer was also a male. So him doing this to you, as wrong as it was not misogyny. How is it misogyny when a man is doing something wrong to another man? Where is the misogynistic aspect in that? Where's the unless you identify as something different, where's the trans aspect in that? See, this is what we got to really stop doing, because that dilutes the actual seriousness of the situation. And I'm not sitting up here trying to say he doesn't deserve justice, because he still does. But I'm just trying to say, when we do stuff like, well, the officer who attacked me because I was black, he is racist, he's homophobic, he's transphobic, he's fatphobic, he's misogynist, and he's sexist, he's ageist, he's a capitalist, he's a like, when you start spreading all of this stuff out, you twist this. When you start spreading all of this stuff out, it dilutes it. Your issue with this officer, with these two white officers, was your blackness. And we got to keep it on that point, because you're only going to get the solution if you address the problem as it is. When you try to spread it all out, then you're going to have people be all like, yeah, and you see, this is why we need more bills to address homophobia in the police department. When you do stuff like this, it allows the lawmakers and the politicians to start overlooking the actual anti-black aspect of this. And then they're going to be all like, yes, exactly. And this is why we have to really spread acknowledgement and awareness to transphobia. That's what they're going to start doing. And we've seen this be done before. Okay. So if it's anti-black, if that's the reason why you got pulled over, that's what you need to address.
Troopers still working. The state police sent a statement reading in part, MSP is committed to unbiased policing and takes any allegations of misconduct seriously.
Now somebody's saying he might be referring to all of the stuff he had posted. I believe he is, because he did find stuff like that. And of course, white supremacy, let me address that. Of course, white supremacy is, yeah, I believe that is why he did that. He probably had a whole bunch of, homophobic or misogynistic stuff there. Here's the thing. When you're on the news, you need to acknowledge the black part. Notice he said transphobic and then homophobic before he said racist. He didn't even say he's racist and other things. Racism came third to transphobia and homophobia. Okay? The only reason you was looking up his social media was the fact that he pulled you over for racism. He was being racist towards you. And to a degree, he damn near buck broke you in front of everybody. And then when you get on the news, the first thing you say is transphobia or homophobia. Okay? Because he shares some stuff which is not proportionate to the anti-black stuff that he's sharing. Okay, if you're there, the best course of action, the most on code thing to do, I'm going to say it because it needs to be said, the most on code thing to do is focus on the black issue. Okay, you can let these other communities deal with that other stuff. You need to focus on the black issue, but you bringing all of these stuff up and then you bringing up racism as an afterthought to the officers' transphobia and homophobia. That's not going to solve the problem.
Did troopers attempt to plant narcotics on Mr. Lariat or in his vehicle?
Now, I want to play this right. It says, of course, the Michigan police said that they didn't try to plant no drugs. Okay, we're going to listen to their explanation and then we're going to go all the way back.
The term stash referred to the trooper's inability to locate his supply of preliminary breath test straws, which are required for administering a test.
Okay, so he was saying in the video that we heard, and we're going to go back to it. In the video that we heard, the police were not talking about planting drugs. They were talking about looking for breath straws that they use for the breathalyzer so they can tell if he had alcohol in his system. Okay, see, they play with our intelligence and they act like we don't know anything. They act like we can't hear. Let's go back to the actual video. This is what the police department is saying. This is what they're saying. Okay, so let's go back to the actual video and listen very closely to see if that matches with them, quote unquote, looking for breathalyzer straws.
They do that. Is it a quota? I have no idea what their motivation is.
The night of the stop, he says a trooper accused him of smelling like something fruity, gave him lengthy sobriety tests, sent him to a clinic where his test came back clean, and then sent him to jail anyway. Lariat says that while in jail, the police took it even further, claiming that he was hiding a bag of drugs inside of himself. That looked have drugs.
I've never even been.
Charges were dropped. Media page for one of the troopers.
He's
part MSP.
Oh, it's right here.
I don't think I have any. Yeah, I had a stash in here somewhere. I don't even know where it's at.
Lariat.
That don't sound like breathalyzer straws. It sounded like they were looking for drugs to plant. That don't sound like they were looking for no breathalyzer straws. That's not what I heard. I heard them say drugs.
I don't think I have any. Yeah, I had a stash in here somewhere. I don't even know where it's at.
Lariat says that.
No. I don't think so. And if that's the case, let's say for the sake of the matter, they're telling the truth. Let's say that for the sake of the matter, they're telling the truth, right? If they're telling the truth and they didn't have the equipment necessary for the breathalyzer test, and they needed him to go to the clinic, why, if he went to the clinic and they found out that he wasn't drunk, why would they then proceed to arrest him for a DUI? Why does that make sense? They went so far that they made him take a bowel movement in front of people, even though when he went to the clinic, they said he was straight, but they still decided to mess with him. So it was looking like they were trying to find a reason to mess with him. They were looking for something. They wouldn't have gone above and beyond like this. If they can't prove to a white person, if he was white, if they couldn't prove that you had alcohol in your system, they would have just left it alone, wouldn't they? I can't blame the brother for believing that they were looking for something to plant on him. They're looking for a stash. I wouldn't. That's what I hear people refer to as bags and drugs, not things for a breathalyzer. He said a stash. That sounds a stash of what? Yeah, a stash. I meant a stash of straws for my breathalyzer. Really? You meant a stash of straws for your breathalyzer test? Okay.
Preliminary breath test straw.
Now, if that's also the case, what's going on with the damn social media? What's going on with the cops' racist Facebook page? If this was not an anti-black reason for pulling him over, if they didn't pull him over because they were anti-black and racist, if that wasn't the reason, what is the reason for the damn racist Facebook page then? What about that?
Which are required for administering a test. MSP initiated an internal affairs investigation. As it pertains to the traffic stop, the investigation concluded it was conducted in accordance with department policy and legal standards. Sexist, racist, and homophobic remarks are not in line with the values of MSP. The allegation about these personal social media posts is part of the internal affairs investigation, which is still underway. The troopers have a month to respond to the lawsuit. Reporting in Detroit, Scott Walchek, Fox 2 News.
Why do people have to find somebody's social media and then report that before the police do? They say things like, a good cop hates bad cops. They say that all the time. The good cops hate bad cops, but it seems like the bad cops are open and they're blatant and they're just out, just unapologetic. They don't try to cover anything. They don't try to hide anything. And the good cops are never the ones to stop the bad cops. It's always the citizens having to go above and beyond, having to go to the judge, having to go to this department, or having to go to this community event or something like that, go to the mayor or a city government or something like that to stop the bad cops. Why do not the good cops stop the bad cops if that's the case? And do you see the over policing in this situation that you don't see going on in the white community, but you see all the time going on in the black community? The stop and frisk, or the being pulled over for no reason whatsoever. Let me bring this up as well too. This came a month ago. Since we're talking about the data, this is the data that Ben Shapiro and his ilk are never going to pull up. They're never going to pull this stuff up. Now, I just showed you about DC, so nobody can say, well, that's one city. I showed you a situation in DC, or the data in DC. I showed you the data in or a situation in Michigan. Now I'm going to show you something in Chicago. It says Chicago police continue to target black. Now, of course, they're going to have to add Latino drivers with traffic stops. 2014 advocacy groups report. Okay, this was not that long ago. It says Chicago police continue to target black and Latino drivers with a massive campaign of traffic stops that fail to make the city safer. In 2014, admit, quote, significant concerns about transparency and accountability in CPD's reporting. Okay, reporting. It's a lack of transparency and accountability in the reporting of the Chicago Police Department. These are the independent voluntary agencies that report to the FBI and that give the FBI the skewed data statistics that the FBI uses, or that Ben Shapiro rather uses, to say that black people commit more crimes. Are you guys following me? Are y'all getting where I'm coming from? All right. It says, According to a new analysis from the coalition of groups, it says approximately 65% of the more than is close to 300,000, 293,000 traffic stops made by CPD and reported to state officials were prompted by improper or expired registration plates or stickers and headlights, tail lights, and license plate offenses, according to a new report from Impact for Equity, a nonprofit advocacy and research organization that helped lead the push to reform the Chicago Police Department. Let me tell you what this means, okay? Let me explain it. What this means is that most of the time in Chicago, trust me, I know this personally. Most of the time in Chicago, when a person, black person, gets pulled over, it's not because of reckless driving. It's not because you ran past the stoplight. It's not because you ran past the stop sign. It's not because you were swerving in different lanes. It's not because they saw you texting and driving. It's not because you were speeding at a very dangerous rate. It is because, it looks like your tail light is out. It looks like your headlight is out. It looks like your license plate expired 3 days ago. It looks like these things that are not a danger, your license plate being expired by a couple weeks, does not make you a dangerous driver, but they will pull you over for it. Your license plate being expired doesn't make you dangerous, but they will pull you over for it. And this is what most of the stops are for. Most of the stops are not, according to this study, most of the stops are not for violent drivers, people who are recklessly driving cars. These are stops because police just want to stop somebody. All right. So let's continue. All right. Going down a little bit more, it says, although CPD reported making 45 fewer stops in 2014 than 2020 in 2024 than 2023, 45% fewer stops. Damn. Because y'all got close to 300,000 here. That means y'all had damn near 600,000 traffic stops in 2023. Let's process that for a second. That means they have or had close to 600,000 traffic stops in 2023. 1 year alone, over 500,000 traffic stops. That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay. It says the number of stops prompted by improper registration or non-working vehicle lights dropped just 2% as compared with data from 2023. It says data is, according to the report, by comparison, 1.5 of all traffic stops in 2024 were prompted by excessive speed, according to the report. All right. So we're going to get down here. We're going to get down. And we're going to get to the point where they talk about black people and all that stuff. It says we're going to start right here. More than 44% of all drivers stopped by police in 2024 were black, B-L-A-C-K. It says, and nearly 35% of drivers pulled over by Chicago police officers were Latino. So even though they want to talk about black and brown, and every single time they talk about black and brown, even though in Chicago, the population size of black and brown people are pretty much equal, you see more black people get pulled over. Okay. So this is almost 10% more black people getting pulled over than brown people. Yet the headline is going to say black and brown, even though it's always more black than brown. All right. It continues to say, by comparison, just 14.8% of drivers stopped in Chicago by Chicago police were white. They were white. Okay. The population of Chicago is 31.4% white, 29.9% Latino, and 28.7% white. And of course, you have, about 7% Asian. Hold on. All right. So even in a city that's now roughly, and of course, give or take a little bit, roughly this is relatively is less than really 2%. The when it comes to the population size, the numbers between white, Latino, and black are less than a 2% difference. So they're pretty much all the same. And this is according to the 2020 US Census. So they might be a little bit different, but pretty much they're all the same. And even though pretty much they're all the same, white people are stopped by police for dangerous driving. I want you to keep this in mind, because this isn't, well, white people are just better drivers. White people are just better drivers, and no wonder they don't get stopped, because they're just better drivers. No, this isn't about you being a good driver. This is about police cherry picking certain things to pull people over. And white people make up only 14%, 14.8%, and black people make up 44%. Now, when you account for population size, now when it comes to crime, notice how they like to do the per capita. Notice that, right? Notice that they like to do the per capita when it comes to crime, when it comes to violent crime, when it comes to crime against white people, by black people, all of this. But when it comes to police brutalizing people, police stopping people, police targeting people, pulling people over, disparities in the justice system, there's no per capita then. They don't like to go with the per capita thing. They only like to use the per capita thing, which is why we got to inform people of stop making that argument. They only like to use the per capita argument when they're trying to skew the numbers, because the raw numbers show that most crime in this country is committed by white people. That's the raw numbers. If most crime is committed by white people are more dangerous than everybody else. But they can't just say that, so they have to cherry pick, and they have to say, well, oh, no, we got to go with the per capita thing. We have to go with the per capita, and we can't factor anything else. Just per capita, they commit more crimes. Even though technically that's not necessarily the case, because just because a police don't make an arrest for a murder does not mean that the murder did not happen. So in the white community, if you saw somebody laying dead with a bunch of bullet holes in their body, that doesn't count in the data, in the FBI data, because of a white on white crime, because they have not arrested a white person for it. So if they don't make the arrest, the data is not going to be reported. So in a community that is underreported, follow me, in a community that is underreported and incidents like that go underreported, it's going to reflect to the data that they commit way less crimes than they actually do. The thing is that white people are not out here being saints and not committing any crimes and being good model civilians. White people are just under policed, and that's why they're able to get away with a lot of this crime. Black people who are hyper managed, who are hyper fixated on to a way obsessive level, are over policed, and this is why the crimes seem to be so much higher in the black community than everything else. And on top of that, then you're going to have to add a lot of disparities. You're going to have to add the fact that the social economic situation in the black community is vastly different from everybody else. You're also going to have to add the situation and the factors in the community that police do plant drugs on people. Police are racist. Police are biased. All right. So all of these things come into play. And what's interesting about this, and we can talk about the data all we want to, and I want to get to the super chats real fast. Shout out to, because I almost forgot we even had them. I'm just sitting up here. I'm on another page. Shout out to from downtown. He says these suspected white supremacists get behind a microphone and just babble. Yeah, they do. That's what they do. That's what they do. Shout out to McCoy23 for the super sticker. Thank you. Another thing too. A lot of people will say things like, oh, you black people, y'all blame white supremacy on everything. You guys have no accountability. what they say. They also say, and this is something that I can't stand. They say, well, when a white person kill a black person, black people be rioting in the streets and black people be protesting. But when black people kill other black people don't care. Black people only care about black lives if it's a white cop. That's I can't stand that, and it's not true. Black people do care about crime in the community. Nobody is saying that crime in the community does not matter if it's not from a different race. Black people are more concerned and are more proactive when it comes to eliminating crime in our community than everybody else is. If we're going to be honest, black people culturally, foundational black Americans culturally have a system of self-policing more than everybody else. Other people won't even acknowledge that they have criminal problems in their community. Let me show you this. And this is something that I'm sure a lot of us seen in many different cities.
The Stop the Violence walk is for every victim, every broken-hearted parent, every classmate that won't see their friend in school again, to show people that the pain from a bullet doesn't stop at the victim. Pastor Tanya Sanderson believes the city isn't a bad place, but it has turned into an area where parents worry about whether their child will make it home safely.
If we don't do anything now, it shows the community that we don't care. Somebody got to stand up for them. Somebody got to say, we'll be the voice for you, because we know you have to return back home.
She hosts this walk annually because she's a mother and has been on the other side of the violence. Her son shot and killed someone.
The crime that my son did.
The family of a 9-year-old is holding this Monday.
Nobody birthed a child for their child to be taken away from them. I don't care where you live. I don't care what your financial situation is. I don't care what you've done. It is not enough to die or be killed for.
Eugenia Parks walked to keep her nephew's name alive. He was murdered at 18 years old soon after graduating high school. His killer still hasn't been caught.
They should care, because bullets don't have no eyes and no conscience. They don't care who they shoot. They don't care who they hit. Nobody should have to worry about their child coming outside and not coming back home.
There are plans to do the walk again next year. On each block, Pastor Sanderson anointed the streets with holy oil. She leans on her faith, praying that the violence stops.
Okay. There's a couple of things I want to say about that. There's a couple of things that we should talk about. We should discuss. Stuff like this happens in the black community. You don't see this stuff happening in the white community. You don't see the stop the violence protest and the put the guns down protest and community leaders and activists going to different crimes and stuff like that, going to different gangs, and trying to create peace. You don't see that stuff happening. This is a form of, now, even though I do have certain critiques with the narrative, but this is their form, or black people's form, of self-policing. All right. This is a form of self-policing. This is a form of black people getting out there trying to raise awareness of the fact that there is a crime issue in the black community. So when people say black people don't take accountability for anything, this is simply not true. Simply, we see cases like this all of the time where black people are taking accountability and black people are trying to solve their own problems. Black people are not sitting up here or not saying anything unless they're white. Now, here is the issue, though. Here's my addition to what they're doing. My issue is the fact that we have to get to the root of the problem. Okay, let's get to the root of the problem here. The root of the problem is the environment and the system of white supremacy that creates an environment that breeds criminality. Okay, and it maintains it so much so it orchestrates it. It doesn't just maintain it, it orchestrates it. So much so that they will actually put guns in the community. They will put drugs in the community. they will start little beefs and things like that in the community. We have to understand this stuff. There was something else that I wanted to show you guys. And I hope it plays because I didn't download it, but I really do hope it plays. And this, I got to remember to download every single thing. Trust me, that gets very annoying. It gets very annoying, but I got to do it because that's my job. But let me show you this. Okay, hopefully, and let me see if it's on Twitter. Hold on. So the thing is that a lot of these numbers are skewed. I'm only showing you this to show you that I'm showing you this to show you that black people do take accountability. Now, what we need to inform black people of is the source of the issue, and it's difficult when people are hurt, when people want to say, well, no, we got to take accountability of ourselves. We do, but we can't solve the problem by blaming the people who should not be blamed. The only way you solve a problem is by blaming the people who actually need to be blamed. Look at this. Okay, if you guys haven't seen, they came out with a new Mission Impossible movie lately. They came out with a new Mission Impossible movie. And in the Mission Impossible franchise, what they do, one of the things that they do is they have face masks, very realistic face masks. Okay, they've been doing this from the very first Mission Impossible, where the main character, he's in disguise and he's disguised as another person. And then later on, he reveals that he rips off his mask, which was so realistic that you would see him and you would tell that that's another person. Now, of course, this is a movie, but there's actual cases of them really doing that. Now, let me show you this.
Mission Impossible is known for, especially when Tom Cruise takes off that mask. Is there any kind of technology that achieves that in the real world of intelligence?
Well, the movies have a lot of options that real life does not offer to you. But the idea of a mask that you could quickly put on, quickly take off was very real, and something that we use with some discretion, but we used it when we needed it and got great results.
Did I read that you had a mask that made you look like an African-American man? Is that right?
That was probably the first one that I took public. That means within the CIA. I briefed some directors and told them we had this capability. We were looking to be able to change your gender and your ethnicity, and even perhaps create a twin if we needed that.
Now, what purpose do you think the government would be doing with that? Why would you think the government would be doing that? What purpose do you think the government would be using that for? Okay, that's very interesting, don't you think? He says, and not only that, you can make a twin. It's not just a random black person. It's not just a random black person. This is something you can make something look like an actual person and set somebody up. Okay. Oh, let's let her finish.
Hold on. So, in your estimation, how likely if
Mission Impossible?
Okay. So that's interesting. But they would never do that. I mean, that would never happen in real life, don't you know? Don't you know that wouldn't happen in real life? Except it already has happened in real life. This happened a long time ago. If you guys haven't seen this happened a while ago. But this is not the first case. This is probably the most famous case, but it's not the first case. Black robber exposed as white man in a mask. This is the same type of prosthetic mask that they put on, the super realistic kind of rubbery mask, and they've only gotten more advanced because this happened in in 2012. Okay, this happened in 2012. So the masks have only gotten more realistic, more advanced. Now, before, the masks were like, you can't really open your mouth, and if you started to talk, it would kind of look weird. So this is why he's wearing the mask with a hoodie on and with glasses on, because you could kind of tell a little bit. The cheaper ones you can kind of tell. Now they're doing this stuff, and this is becoming very realistic, where if you commit a crime at night and you got a witness who sees you, they're gonna say, oh, it was a black man. He looked about 5'10", and he was bald, and you know what I'm saying, he had this and this and glasses on, and then they're gonna start looking for black people. And then when that happens, a black person who did not commit a crime is actually going to be arrested. And then you're going to have Ben Shapiro out here talking about how black people commit all of these crimes. Notice that they're not going to talk about this, because this defeats their narrative. Now, when we were saying this for the longest time, they were sitting up there talking about, oh no, this is a conspiracy theory. Y'all blame the government for everything. The government was not planting drugs in the community. They were not planting guns. You guys need to stop blaming white people. They're not doing anything wrong. All right. Gonna look at this a little bit. Okay. It says a white bank robber fooled detectives by wearing a Hollywood special effects mask that disguised him as a black man. Okay. You got to say this is a suspected white supremacist move, because even if he wanted to rob the bank and didn't want people to find him, he didn't have to wear a black mask. He could have wore a mask of a white man that didn't look like him. He could have wore any other ethnicity. He could have wore a black ski mask where you couldn't tell who it was. He could have worn, you've seen videos where people be wearing cartoon masks, but masks look like Incredible Hulk or something like that, or Spider-Man or something like that. But instead, he wanted to wear a black mask because he wanted a black man, a random black man, to take the blame for him robbing the bank and potentially get killed. So this is a white supremacist right here, suspected white supremacist. So Conrad, his last name is something, it looked foreign. So anyway, Conrad says 30 is accused of using a silicone mask for 6 robberies, 5 on the same day. This man was out here doing a spree. 6 robberies, 5 on the same day, believing they were searching for an African-American male. The police in Springfield, Ohio, had released CCTV footage from the banks in an appeal for information. They eventually caught the guy, and they found out that he was white. All right. Now, this is something that the CIA is finally starting to admit to. That, oh yeah, we've been doing that. Yeah, we've been doing that. Yep, we've been doing that. So when you look at all of this stuff, when you take all of this stuff into account, when you take the hate crimes into account, when you take the actual way that they report data, the FBI collects data into account, when you take the over policing into account, when you take certain situations of white people wearing black face masks to commit crimes, so a black person can be blamed, all of that into account, you're going to see that black people commit far less crimes than everybody else does, actually. And the raw numbers actually do prove that. The raw numbers prove that black people commit less crimes collectively than other races of people, other ethnic groups of people. But yet, with all of these other factors, it's going to make it seem like we commit more crimes, even though a 13% of the population committing 50% of the violent crimes wouldn't make sense. You couldn't sell that story to nobody else, but they're going to keep saying that. They're going to keep saying that. The crime data, I want to be abundantly clear with this. Crime data is not reflective of the actual crimes in the actual society. It is not reflective of who actually commits those crimes in society. What you see in the crime data is the actual reporting of those crimes. So if there is a bias in the reporting of those crimes, if there is an anti-black slant in the reporting of the crimes, then it's going to change the way the data in the table looks. It's not about who did the crime, all right? It's about the way, first off, who is reporting, and then how the crime is being reported, okay? Let me get to the super chat from my brother, Torian. Torian says, the movie, the first Purge, is a prime example. That's true. It's a prime example of them using black community to kickstart propaganda. Yeah, that is true. To be honest, and that's a really good point. A lot of what they do in real life, they sprinkle in movies, in TV shows. They kind of let it be known the targeting that they do, in especially when it comes to like crime stuff that do with crime and CIA and government corruption and stuff like that. A lot of that stuff is true. That stuff is not just for the movies. That stuff is true. Let me get to my brother William. He says, former CIA chief of disguise confirms the use of realistic FBI masks for operations. Now, and then when we say it, they'll say that this was propaganda, but they've already confirmed this. They've already confirmed this. Now, Ben Shapiro, he's never going to admit to this because this would defeat his narrative. Another thing, when you talk about Ben, right? What a lot of people say is when we have these conversations, a lot of people will also say stuff like, no, man, you got to understand, it's not white supremacy, man. It's the Jews. They say that. Ben Shapiro, Jews. Okay. All right. I mean, that's all right. Then here's my question to you guys. Why every time Ben Shapiro makes an anti-black statement, when he skews anti-black numbers and all of that stuff, why do you see other Caucasians, these are the Anglo-Saxon Caucasians, they're all in lockstep with Ben? Just notice that. Just notice that. Now, these are the people, when we talk about white supremacy, they say, well, it's no white supremacy, man. It's the Jews, right? They say that until a Jewish person says something anti-black, and then you don't see them fighting against each other. Notice that. Notice there is no bit of anti-blackness that Ben Shapiro spews, that these people who claim, no, man, the whites and the blacks, we got to work together against the Jews. We're all oppressed against the Jews. Okay. Well, why do you guys always fall in line every time Ben Shapiro says something against black people? I ain't never seen these people say anything against Ben when Ben is talking against us. And then on the other side, Ben, he likes to play the, well, hold on, I'm not a white supremacist, I'm not really white. That's the game Ben Shapiro likes to play. Anytime you say, well, Ben Shapiro, you're a white supremacist. Oh, no, I'm a Jew. No, I can't be a white supremacist. They hate me too. That's their excuse. Every time they get away with anti-black racism, every time they escape from the fact that they're all fellow white supremacists, they'll be all like, well, technically, if you look at the word technically, they're not, I'm not a white man. Technically, I'm a Jew. So technically I do not fit in that definition. They play this game. All right. They all play this game. So when we talk about white supremacy and the system of white supremacy, you'll see Anglo-Saxons like Steven Crowder and all that stuff be all like, well, no, they're not. It's not white people who are oppressing you guys. It's the Jews. They control the banks and they control the movies and they control all of this stuff. And then when you go to them, well, hold on. No, it's not me. It's white people. And I'm not white now. I'm not a white man. I'm a Jew, and that's not white. And they play, but they're both in lockstep when it comes to anti-black racism. Even though they both will tell you they can't stand each other and they're at each other's necks and they're at each other's throats all the time, yet when it comes to anti-black racism, you would think that they're identical twins. There's no difference. None whatsoever. Explain how that works. Somebody said, do I read the super chats? Yeah, I read the super chats. I read the super chats. Sometimes we take pauses. Yeah, I read all the super chats so far. Yeah, I've read all the super chats. There might be some cases where I miss them, but I do read the super chats. Just notice that. So anytime they come up and they try to play this deflection game, because in the system of white supremacy, it's all about deceit. It's all about lying. It's all about misdirection. Okay? This is their weapon. This is the weapon that they use against black people, because in a war, because we are in a war, we're in an anti-black war, and we're fighting a war against white supremacy, against the system of white supremacy. Okay, we're fighting on behalf of justice in a war against evil. This is what we're doing. This is not promoting violence to anybody. We do not promote violence on this channel. You all know this. We are fighting for justice and to replace an evil system with a system of justice. One of the tactics, the main tactic that they use in war is deception. It is to deceive your enemy. You don't know who the real enemy is. This is something that white supremacy has done the entire time. Okay? It's always this game of racist hot potato, where, oh no, the Anglos say it's not me, it's the Jews. Okay, the Jews say it's not me, it's the Anglos. Then they say it's not me, it's the Democrats. The Democrats say it's not me, it's the Republicans. The Republicans say it's not me, it's the liberals. The liberals say it's not me, it's the super rich, it's the 1%. Oh, it's not me, it's the politicians. Oh, it's not. And there's this constant passing the potato. It's not me, it's them. It's not them, it's them. It's not them, it's them. And this game is to confuse you into not seeing that they're all on the same team. They're all playing for the same team. Every time they shoot and make a bucket, that bucket adds to the score on the team of white supremacy. They're all adding to the team of white supremacy. They're all on the same team. Yet when you call the team out, they try to individualize themselves. We can't let them get away with that. Every time you say that team is against my community, they be all like, oh, we're not a team. I'm not with them. They're by themselves. Oh, it's not me. It's him. It's not him. It's him. It's not him. It's her. It's not her. It's her. They do that all of the time. And we do have some people who be all like, oh yeah, that is true. It's not really them. It's the Jews, because the Jews could. No. Okay. Because name one thing, name one thing, and I'll give you, name one thing that Ben Shapiro has done or said that black people, against black people, that you had these, it's not us, it's the Jews people saying something about. Name one thing. Matt Walsh, he works for the Daily Wire, doesn't he? Or he's an affiliate with the Daily Wire. He's employed by them. Okay. And he's an Anglo. But you see, when it comes to them, all of these different ethnicities, okay, of the white race seem to work together in lockstep against black people. Whether they're an Anglo white, whether they're a Jewish white, whether they're a Hispanic white, because they were saying that against George Zimmerman, right? Remember George Zimmerman? They were all like, hold on, how was he racist when he's Hispanic? No, because according to them, what they're doing now, their update now is to say that pretty much whiteness doesn't exist, because every time you say something is racist and against white people, they'll be all like, hold on, dude, I'm not white, I am Italian. That's not even really white. That hasn't been white for that long. That's not even really white. I'm not white. Okay, well, you're white. Oh, no, I'm an Orthodox Jew. I'm not white. Okay, well, you're white. Oh, hold on now. I'm Latino. I'm not white. So nobody wants to claim it anymore, but they all play for the same damn team. Are y'all following me? Are we like this? Are you following what I'm saying? This is the thing that we need to have people understanding. Another thing I want to bring up. Ben Shapiro talking about people being born out of wedlock. Fatherlessness. It's a problem. Something that needs to be corrected. But then there's the thing of leading by example. What type of example do you think that you set when you co-sign and when you're in line with somebody like Elon Musk? Ben. Now, when it comes to black people, having children out of wedlock is a sin, and the whole community should be condemned, and we should all do the walk of shame, and there should be not a single child born out of wedlock. Every single black couple needs to be married, and they need to have a slew of children. Okay. Well, what about Elon Musk? Oh, y'all not going to say anything about Elon Musk? This man is out here with several baby mamas. The same stereotype that you guys put on black men with several baby mamas. He ain't been married to none of them. The same stereotype y'all put on black women. Ain't none of them black either. Keep this in mind. None of them are black. The same stereotype that y'all put on black women and black men and women. Elon Musk out here running a damn muck, and y'all co-signing every single thing that he does. Ben Shapiro standing side by side with him. This man can give a whole Nazi salute at a speech, and Ben Shapiro is going to defend them. But the same actions that Elon Musk is doing, you're going to sit up there and say, well, this is the reason for black people committing all the crimes in the community. If black people would stop doing stuff like this, well, Ben, you're not setting a good example. You kicking it with Elon Musk. You must think he cool. You must think he okay. What makes it okay when Elon Musk does that? If it's wrong for black people to do, it should be wrong for Elon to do. Don't you think? But no, of course they don't want to have that standard because they don't really care about the whole born out of wedlock thing. Even though we can already say that, yeah, it should be it shouldn't be done nearly to that degree. Of course not. Of course not. But they don't really care about that. They just use that as a talking point and a rationale for anti-black racism and a justification for anti-black racism. All right. Another thing. When it comes to the skewing of data, we can look at the case of Carmelo Anthony. Now, recently it's been reported, I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, but it's been reported that Carmelo is being charged by the prosecutors in Texas as an adult. First degree murder as an adult. And he has the chance of, he may do what they're trying to get him to do is life in prison. And he may be eligible for parole in 40 years. That's what they're saying. If they convict him on first degree. This is what they're saying about Carmelo. Okay. Now, this is not something new. We already knew he charged him with first degree. I don't want anybody to be discouraged. We already knew that they were going to attempt to throw the book at him. He still has a legitimate defense as far as the data that we know as of right now. He still has a legitimate defense. Okay. So we're just going to keep our support going that he does actually get justice, that there is actual unbiased, anti-black justice in this case. But notice that. Notice that when it comes to self-defense, it gets deemed as murder if they're black. But when Daniel Penny does it, he's a hero. It's not murder. He's a hero. He's a patriot. Don't you understand? He's a patriot. If he does it against a homeless man who he said didn't touch anybody. Carmelo Anthony, he was actually being assaulted, but it doesn't count. Well, people say with Carmelo, well, Carmelo was in the wrong. Okay, well, he was in the wrong. Well, he shouldn't have stabbed. They say he shouldn't have stabbed nobody for just being for Austin asking him to move out of his seat. Okay, and you know what? I'll agree with that. Let's agree with that for the sake of argument. You shouldn't stab nobody for them asking you to move out his seat. Yeah, okay. So was Carmelo sitting in Austin Metcalf's seat? Oh no, he wasn't sitting in Austin Metcalf's seat. Oh no, he wasn't. Okay, was Carmelo sitting in Austin's brother's seat? No, he wasn't sitting in Austin's brother's seat either. Okay, was Carmelo sitting in anybody's seat? He was sitting in somebody else's seat? Oh, well, no, technically he wasn't sitting in anybody's seat. It wasn't any assigned seats. They were, all sitting on the bleachers. Okay then. Well, was Austin okay. Oh, okay. Oh, I get it. So was Austin like a teacher, or was he a coach or something like that? Oh, no, Austin wasn't that either. Austin was just another student. Okay, I'm not understanding why Carmelo was forced to move. Why should have Carmelo? I don't understand why was he told to move again? Oh, he should have moved because Austin wanted him to move. And he was wrong for not obeying Austin. He was wrong for not obeying Austin? What gives Austin the authority? He's white. That's what gives him the authority. He's a white man. Why wouldn't he have this authority to just throw somebody around if he doesn't like where he's sitting? What good is being white if you can't just pick somebody up and throw them around if you don't like where they're sitting? That's a basic human right of white people. It doesn't matter if he wasn't sitting in his seat or his brother's seat or anybody else's seat but his own seat. It doesn't matter if he didn't have the authority to ask him to move. The second Austin, who's a white man, asked the black man to do something, he should have just did it. And this wouldn't have happened if Carmelo knew his place. Okay. Damn. You see what type of Jim Crow logic that is? That's some Rosa Parks stuff. That's Jim Crow logic. Yeah, you should just Austin told you to move. Should have moved. Simple as that. Doesn't matter if he doesn't technically have the right to tell you to move. White. So you move. This is what they're doing. And they're saying by you defending yourself from somebody trying to throw you out in the rain under a tent, on steps, on concrete steps, he's trying to throw you on some concrete steps out in the rain on a tent, is first degree murder. That's what they're saying. And this is why the data is skewed. Because if he was white, he wouldn't be charged with first degree, and we all know that. We all know that. They would have said he was perfectly justified, the same way they said all three of these men were perfectly justified. This right here, Kyle Rittenhouse, with the judge sitting up there acting like his defense attorney, what's his name? George Zimmerman, Daniel Penny, all of these people is why the data is so skewed, because they have anti-black racism in the justice system, and it gives them a pass. Their race gives them a pass. This is why. This is why. Family, I also want to show you something before we get out of here. I know you guys, it's still Memorial Day. Y'all still want to spend time with y'all family, and that's good. That's great, actually. I want to show y'all something. And I want to give a shout out before we get out of here. Let me give a shout out to, we went to the Black Ohio Expo. Or the Ohio Black Expo. My bad. We went to the Ohio Black Expo. Okay. Great event. Great event. Okay. Food, phenomenal. We met Brother Phil Scott. This was my first time meeting Brother Phil. Phil Scott from the African Diaspora News Channel. I've been watching him for years. You know, he's been growing a lot. That's tremendously wonderful. This is, I met Vicky Dillard again, but, you know, it's always a pleasure to meet Vicky Dillard. you know, me, Miss Jackson, you know, the brothers and sisters from the you know, Chicago, everybody from Chicago came to represent. Let me show you guys some of the pictures if you guys haven't seen it. Pull it up right here. Here it is. Okay. As you can see here, you see that's me. Shout out to Miss Jackson. That's our good sister Vicky Dillard. That's my brother Michael. He and his wife, they also got content. They got it's called More Real News, MOOR Real News, and they do also reporting and stuff like that in Chicago in City Hall. So we all be down there giving City Hall and Brandy Johnson the business and all that stuff. So we took that picture. And then there's the picture that we took with brother Phil. So that was, I don't know, why is this blue thing on the, move out the way. Okay, yeah. That's me and Vic. And let me go back to that one. Okay. So you see that. It was a great trip, okay? The food was really good. Shout out to Life's Lemon. Life's Lemon Lemonade. I'm telling you guys, damn near saved the trip. Life's Lemon Lemonade. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal lemonade. Trust me, it was a great lemonade. We just chopped it up and everything like that. We had a great time. We were very excited to see them. They were happy to see us. We were chopping it up. It was like a family reunion thing. We talked to some of the other people there. You know, that's me and Sister Vicky. That's me and our brother Phil. You know, that's the Demetria K. Demetria K. She does a lot of content on the African Diaspora News channel. So shout out to Demetria K. She does a lot of coverage too of Chicago, you know. So shout out to her, you know, standing on business and all that. Us and Miss Jackson. You know, Miss Jackson and Vicky. Shout out to Miss Jackson and Vicky because they're very much alike in a lot of positive ways. You know what I'm saying? If you guys have seen, I'm sure you guys have seen videos of Vicky Dillard. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen videos of Vicky Dillard, right? And you guys have seen Miss Jackson. And you guys see how Miss Jackson and Vicky Dillard, they both be going off, and they have such a fiery yet articulate passion about them. You know, they be going off, but they go off in such a way that's still classy and very ladylike, honestly. You know what I'm saying? They're very they have a fiery and a youthful energy, but they also have a unique wisdom to them. You know what I'm saying? And a relatability to what they're saying. Like you really do feel the energy when they go off. So I think that it was great to meet them. I think their frequencies really do align really good in that way, you know. So it was just a nice trip, you know. It was a really fun trip. You know, she's been I think Ms. Jackson also did an interview with Demetria K before. This was during the election and all of that. Shout out to everybody out there who was supporting. So it was just really good. It was really good. Shout out to the Black Expo, the Ohio Black Expo. I keep saying it in the wrong order. But the Ohio Black Expo. It was great. It was great. Okay. That was a great way to start the Memorial Day weekend, or because it was Saturday. We went there Saturday. It was two events. It was Saturday and Sunday. We were just there for the Saturday event, but that was fine. That was fine. Also, Tidra Moses was there. Tidra Moses was there. She performed. Common and Pete Rock was there. They performed. I'm not going to play any of the clips because I don't want no copyright issue. But they were there and they performed. Dave Chappelle showed up because Dave Chappelle is from Ohio. So Dave Chappelle made a cool appearance and everything like that. And that was nice. But we really went down there. to link up with Phil Scott, with Vicky Dillard and Demetra K, because we wanted to show them and Ohio that Chicago was there to represent. And we also talked about, future plans and stuff like that. Me and Phil Scott, we were talking about plans and our channels and things like that, and ways that we plan on. I don't want to, say everything right now, but we were talking about different ideas and bouncing ideas off. He has some really, really, really big stuff going on. It's not my business to say, but he has some really good big stuff going on. So that's really good for him. Vicky Dillard, she got some really good stuff going on coming up soon. Both of them, Demetra K, they all got stuff going on coming up soon. And that's for them to announce when they're ready. But, that's really good for them. And we were saying that we were there to, support them or whatever the case is. So definitely you can expect us to be meeting them again, to doing more collaborative projects and things like that. So it's going to be really good. We got a lot of good stuff planned for this summer, so I just want you guys to know that. Leave us, even though we're talking about crime and all of this and all of that, leave us with something positive. I think we should be left with something positive. So I think that that's a very positive way to end this. After debunking and kind of breaking down the myths and narratives of anti-Black racism from the Ben Shapiro's and his ilk, I think it's good to leave us with something positive. I do. Our family, I appreciate every single last one of you guys, one of you brothers and sisters. Let me see. Do I have another super chat before I go? Tell it like it is. Yeah, tell it like it is says, all of this madness reminds me of the G game. Keep away. The G game, keep away. It says, with FBAs being caught up in the middle trying to get the ball. Yeah. By not simply playing and minding our business, we take back our power. That's true. That's true. And he's talking about how they play the hot potato. The racism's over there. Oh no, the racism's over there. Oh no, the racism's over there. The racism's over there. No, we ain't gonna play that game. Y'all all on the same team. When you're watching basketball and you're seeing the Bulls and all that, when Michael Jordan passes the ball to somebody else, he's not passing the ball to another individual. He's passing the ball to another teammate. I want you to understand that. They're all on a different team. So you might think, oh, I don't have to guard him. You got to guard him. He's the one making the shot. No, y'all playing for the same team. Y'all both want this team to win. So we have to see him as a team. This is what Dr. Claude Anderson was talking about. Race is a team sport. They play as a team. We need to play as a team. All right. That's a really good point. I appreciate you all for being here with us this evening. It's Memorial Day weekend. Y'all could be out. Y'all could be, having fun, being with family and everything, but you guys are here and that means a lot. Thank you all so much. If you guys haven't gotten the notifications, you guys can do so by clicking the links in the description below. That's, where I keep my social media so you guys can be notified. Also, make sure that you guys hit that like button. Very important, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. Make sure, hit that like button. All right? I appreciate every single last one of you brothers and sisters tremendously. I do. And with that being said, be one to all of you all. Thank you all for watching, and y'all stay blessed.